drive them away. We can beat them just for one day. We can be heroes just for one day. And you can be new. And I'll drink all the time. 'Cause we're lovers, and that is a fact. Yes, we're lovers, that is that. Though nothing will keep us together, we could steal time just for one day. We can be heroes forever and ever. What you say? Dolphins can swim. Though nothing will keep us together. We can beat them forever and ever. Oh, we can be heroes just for one day.
There you go. That is David Bowie, and that is Heroes. And I'm Pat Porter. We're back with you once again. What are we doing here today? 4680q.ca and 4680q.com as well. We have a great show lined up for you today. More of David Bowie coming up. Going to be talking with Michael Bell of Bowie Lives, the Bowie Lives show, which, by the way, is kicking into high gear. So we're gonna bring him in right now and talk to him. Hello, Michael Bell. How are you?
Hey, Pat, how are you doing?
Very good today, thank you. How you keeping?
I'm well. You know, it's funny. I heard you do the intro and you called the show the Bowie Live.
Yeah, I know.
And of course, we call it the Bowie Lives.
The Bowie Lives, yeah.
But you know, that's absolutely one of the reasons that I chose this name for the show is because it can be said either way and it makes sense either way.
Well, that's what I thought too. You know, I remember I talked to you back in the fall. And you were down at the Roselawn Theater in Port Colborne putting on a great show, and I was down there in attendance watching that show as well. Fantastic. But we had this conversation, you know, and I forget where we left off, Michael, whether it was Bowie Lives or the Bowie Lives, you know, so I figured
it could be either, Pat, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, it's a great show. Canada's most spectacular tribute to David Bowie. Now, you've been doing this a long time, and I guess you probably know every note of every song, every word that is in the lyrics of every David Bowie song. Is that correct or what?
Well, you know, you should ask my musical director if that's the case. But I wouldn't say I know every lyric for every song that he's ever recorded. That's for sure. I mean, there's such a span of material and offerings. But I certainly know the lyrics, the material that we're presenting in every show. That's I make sure that's happening.
Yeah, of course. Now, you got some new ads that you're going to bring in for your new tour that's coming up. And by the way, we'll talk about that as well. It starts in March. But you got, of course, there's no new David Bowie releases, but you kind of rotate things around because there's so much material, you can't get it into one show. Is that the way it works out?
That's absolutely the way it works out. And, you know, you got to pick the hits for the fans that they expect it. Coming into markets again, you know, we have a little bit more leeway where we can add some more deep dives and, you know, because, you know, folks are seeing us again. We run into people who have seen the show 3 or 4 times in the last few years even.
I know.
So that, you know, but definitely when we roll into the market for the first time, if folks haven't seen us, we make sure we got all the hits covered from the different, depending on what their era is, you know. Yeah.
Well, so many different David Bowie eras now. I guess at the beginning was what, Ziggy Stardust? Was that how it started off?
Well, sort of. Like he started off kind of, you know, as David Jones, and then he did a bit of a hippie thing for a while, you know, as Space Oddity, of course, was the big hit and Changes, and Hunky Dory album, which was truly inspired by Bob Dylan and the folk sound and movement. And then he did the Ziggy, and he did that over a number of albums, 4.
Yeah.
And then he came out as the Young American,
right?
And gave us a great Motown album, and then became the Thin White Duke. Like it just goes on and on, you know. As he would say, it was more comfortable for him to pick a character on stage than it was to be himself. I think later in his career, as he aged, and you know, he really came out as himself, and you could tell when you watch him live or the unplugged shows, and where he's you know, he's just a real guy. You know, he's not trying to put on an act, which for a lot of his career he was playing a role as an actor, singer actor.
Yeah, that's right. When he first began, now he pulled off so many changes and reinventions of himself, of David Bowie, that you know, you get the selection of music and it goes in all different directions. Like you were just talking about Bob Dylan, you know, that kind of thing, and you know, some of the stuff, you know, like Young Americans. I mean, the words on the song. There's so many words tell so many different stories. How do you keep track of all that?
So many words, for sure.
I know.
That song, it's been easy for me because that was one of the very first songs I ever heard as a kid. I went out and bought. I heard Fame on the radio. I was 13 years old,
Yeah.
And I went out and bought Young Americans for my aunt for Christmas. And we sat down and listened to the album, and that was it for me. I mean, I was already big into music, listening to the Partridge Family and Bobby Sherman and the Osmonds and the Jackson 5 and that sort of thing of the day. So to discover this guy, and then to go back into his catalog after that, as I started going back and looking for other albums by David Bowie, recognizing, oh my goodness, he's a folk artist, he's a heavy rocker, he's he's got a whole album of covers, and then the Motown record, like quote unquote Motown, but just a funky, R&B record. And then the rest of it, of course, then he goes off to Berlin and does the Berlin trilogies and works with Brian Eno and, on and on and on. Like, it's just been the succession of different sounds, and, the sensibility's always been the same, I find. Like, he's always talking about the same stuff in lyric, but musically, they've all been so different.
Well, how do you get inside of the head of David Bowie? I mean, this is kind of complicated. You look at other singers, like for Elvis, for instance, and there are a few different variations on the theme, but basically it was Elvis, rock and roll, and swing your hips. But David Bowie, he had, from start to finish, he had a little of this, a little of that, and he put it all together in one great big, gigantic compendium, How do you pick it apart and put it all together again for your shows?
Well, lyrically, it's all very heady, which makes it, it's always kind of made it a challenge. I mean, I grew up with Ziggy playing it in high school bands, and in those days, you were under you had a piece of vinyl and headphones, and so you were, trying to figure out what he said, and then so there's this guy with a crazy accent and this wild range melodically that. What's that website where they go, all of the misquotes, all the lyrics, and all the, people put in all the things they thought, excuse me, will I kiss this guy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So, a lot of the process later in life was having to unlearn the mistakes in the lyrics that I first, that I was used to singing as a teenager.
Well, that's it. As a teenager, you listen to the music, and back when you're listening to Bobby Sherman and the Partridge Family, and the Cowsills and groups like that, you didn't have the lyrics unless you bought one of the magazines, like teen magazines, and they have some of the lyrics for some of the songs in them. And you could learn them, but you really couldn't search Google and find out all the information you can find out now.
Well, that's it. Songbooks didn't really exist, and the thing with a lot of shows, other acts of the day, the lyric was pretty obvious. So you kind of knew what, even if you couldn't really understand what the guy said, or you thought, okay, he's probably saying that. But you get into the Bowie stuff, and it's like, who says Weird and Gilly? Like, right?
Right.
So you're going to see, oh, really? What he said, Weird and Gilly,
Yeah.
and break my bones, like, yeah.
You gotta...
Thank goodness for the internet.
Yeah.
Today,
it sure does.
When I'm dissecting newer material and can just pop it up.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I might be a few years older than you, but when I was a kid, I'd listen to the music, and I'd want to, hear the lyrics, and I want to write them down. So I'd write them down. I'd have to take the song and run it back a little bit, and then try again and keep going until I got all the lyrics down. And finally, I thought I had everything, but it was all wrong. It wasn't what they were actually singing.
It was, absolutely, because, and in the day, you had a piece of vinyl, and if it had a scratch right in the middle of that line, or a bit of dust or something, it's like, oh my God, I'm never going to get that. So, as a kid, I tended to make up some of the lyrics. But yeah, it's all great because it's just great poetry, and of course musically, it's the gas because it's all over the place, and that just suits me well because I grew up listening to all kinds of music and styles, and from big band to Piaf to classical to country. And so, here was a guy I could kind of, be inspired by, who was tackling every kind of music and every kind of sound, which went on to teach me in life, maybe to my demise as an original artist, but was to just write and produce music that you heard, as opposed to thinking, okay, what's hot on radio now? Now, of course, he also would listen to what was going on. And one of the great brilliance of Bowie was, the genius of the guy was, he would surround himself with the cutting edge artists and producers of the day and let them help shape his sound.
Aha.
So like you think of something like, We Do Afraid of Americans. Well, he brought Trent Reznor to bear on that record, 9 Inch Nails. And so it has that sensibility, the Berlin trilogy stuff, Heroes, you bring Brian Eno into, and you bring Robert Fripp in on Scary Monsters, and these guys, because they're just such big artists themselves, they just help shape the sound so dramatically. And then, as I've seen interview with him and with other folks who talk about working with him, and they just say, he would just come in and let them do whatever he wanted. I love this story. Whether it's true or it's an urban legend, I'm not sure. But the story goes that during the Scary Monster sessions, he had Fripp come in, and they went into the studio, and Fripp just cracked open his guitar and started noodling away, coming up with little bits. And Bowie just let as he's known to do, just let the tape roll. And from front to back, and Fripp just wailed away through the whole album. And then, they got to the end of it, and then Bowie said, okay, so let's do this. And then Fripp was packing up his guitar and said, you've got it. That's what it is. Right.
Right.
And, I'm sure that's kind of
it's a different way of doing things.
Well, it's a very different way of doing things. It's, his work with Adrian Belew, the same kind of thing as a guitar player, just crazy Belew antics and sounds coming, and him letting it shape the whole vibe of the record,
Yeah. Well, let's go back, Michael Bell. I want to talk about your stage shows and how you channel David Bowie. But let's go back. You were talking a little while ago about when you were 13 and getting into music. That's about the age that people really get into it. You got into it in a big way. You were the original voice of I. And that band went on to win a Q107 homegrown contest back in '84. How'd that make you feel?
Yeah, it was great. It was back in the day, right?
Yeah.
When that actually, was quite a deal. I wasn't a teenager at that point. I was in my early 20s, but it was great. I'd had an original band working with a guy, Alex Stengel, for years, in a oddly named show called Strobic Axe, and we were kind of a Canadian punk, new wave punky thing, as people have described it, as Rush meets Kiss meets Bowie. And we went on, produced an LP, and had great success as a kind of a cult thing, So I was like an original artist. Now again, they were Alex songs, but I was coming up with the melodies and the inflections and that sort of thing. His lyric, his chord structure, that he was a fantastic songwriter, and
you were the icing. You were the icing on the cake.
I was kind of the icing. I was the spice on the cake for sure. The stuff that kind of like pushed it over the top. And then I got to work with another guy shortly after that, named Martin Gallup, who I was just chatting with him this afternoon. He just got back from LA. He's cut himself an amazing career in Europe. He's been there for the last 30 years as a producer, and he was a performer for years. And he and I had a show together for years as well. And I was we busked across the country together, and that's how I ended up meeting these guys that we ended up forming II and going on. Martin went off to Europe, but I tell these stories because, yeah, I was an original artist, and that's what, when I went to do the Bowie thing in the first time in the '80s, in the late '80s, it was a show called Changes All Bowie, and it was a bit of a piece of theater. I didn't have a band. I went into the studio with session guys and created backtracks, and I had 8 costume changes and scrims and extras on stage, and it was all sort of, it was the days when music videos were just starting, and so I was trying to create live music video, basically.
Changes All Bowie, right? Changes
All Bowie, yeah.
The theatrical production.
What's that?
That was a theatrical production, as opposed to just getting on stage and playing a guitar. You had a real show going on with that.
Yeah, I had a real show going on. Much like what we're in the midst of revamping the show now to become more of that kind of thing. Just more. I mean, we already have, folks coming in on costumes with costumes on stage, and the multimedia and all that kind of stuff. The director's chair, which is, where David would have sat. I swear, it's symbolically on the stage as the empty chair, as his empty director's chair, which is a prop that he used throughout his career, sitting in a director's chair. And so we're going to. I'm in the midst of kind of rewriting the show a bit for the fall. That's going to reflect more of my old show, which pulled, lighting and theatrical moments from the period in which he did it.
Well, you've got, when I saw you at the Roselawn Theatre in Port Colborne, you had quite a stage presence down there. You had a lot of activity on stage. This redheaded girl, tell me about her. She jumped up there and put on quite a show.
Yeah, SJ.
Yeah.
So SJ Riley, she's been with us now for about 3 years. I guess she joined right before COVID hit, I guess. And she is our Ziggy. She's our Thin White Duke. She comes out and in costume and models the costume and gives you the iconic Bowie poses and that sort of thing, and for folks to take photos, and adds a lot of color, and we have a bit of a dance thing, and then of course she comes out later in the show and does the Annie Lennox Under Pressure with me, and in costume as Annie Lennox, and that's always a showstopper. And yeah, she's a fantastic part of the show. There's no doubt about it. Because I couldn't jump in and out of 8 costumes any longer.
No. Well, it's tough, and you got somebody like her that comes on and off like that. And I remember at the pre-show, you have the T-shirts, the collectibles, all the merchandise, the LPs and DVDs on sale, and people were dressed up as their favorite David Bowie persona. And CJ, is it? Was it CJ?
SJ.
SJ. Okay, SJ was in the room, and she was passing out buttons, little David Bowie buttons with Michael Bell, on them. And people put those away like real souvenirs.
Well, we hope so, and so when we meet folks, we also hand out a laminate for folks who have come to the show a number of times, and of course we'll recognize them. SJ is our greeter in the lobby, so when you come into the show, she's in costume, and we make these commemorative buttons that have the venue and the town on them, and we see folks who've come to see the show multiple times, and they may have like what we have called the super fan laminate, and they'll have their buttons lined up on it, from different shows that they've seen over different years, because we date them as well, and they're free. We just hand them out. We just want people to go home, and if they want to remember the show, it's a great way to remember the show. Put a pin, and it's just our logo says "The Bowie Lives." We have different ones as well. We have some with our faces on them and stuff, but the mainstay button is just the logo that just says "The Bowie Lives," which I'll tell you, we sell the T-shirt as well, obviously, that says "The Bowie Lives."
Right.
And I've worn that shirt around the world, and I've had more people come up to me, not recognizing that it's a band shirt, like that's advertising my show.
Right, yeah.
But just the message itself that the Bowie does live, the Bowie lives. And we use it kind of as, get your Bowie on, and it's almost a noun, like the word, the Bowie, the Bowie.
The Bowie. You got a website, thebowielives.com.
We do.
Yeah, a lot of information there, a lot of pictures as well, a lot of good stuff there to check out.
Yeah, we're building that all the time, yeah.
Yeah, so you're the subject of a documentary film called Being David Bowie and a web series called The Bowie Lives. A couple of projects, right?
Yeah, both of them are in production. The Being David Bowie, it's sort of a tale of, it's an everyman story, kind of, as well as obviously showing what goes into making a show and the behind the scenes stuff and all that kind of thing as well. The stuff that you would imagine in a band documentary. But the other part of it is I try to touch on the fact that, it's a careful what you wish for. This is what happened to me the first time around, was why I didn't enjoy. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy the show, like the music and singing the music. I've always loved that, and I loved the costumes. That was all really fun. But, it was, as an original artist at the time, you're trying to flog your own personality and your own brand, and this guy's brand kept getting in the way. Like I say, the guy basically stole my brand,
Yeah.
And everybody from, was like, oh, sure, your original stuff's pretty neat, but what about that Bowie thing, or, geez, you sound a lot like Bowie, or in the old days, I really looked like Bowie, and so, so it was kind of like you lose your identity, and then you realize that lots of people fall to that, especially as musicians, but also sports people who are inspired by sports figures and start playing with it by their style, and maybe their own style goes by the wayside because they're having so much success with somebody else's style.
Well,
so
how did that feel to you when you found out that David Bowie style was kind of overtaking the Michael Bell original style? How did that make you feel?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. It was when I was doing the Changes All Bowie show in the 80s, I didn't like that. I didn't like the feeling of people going, wow, you're such a great Bowie. And I just, I was like, no, I'm Michael Bell. Like, I have my own projects and my own music. And I had just won the Q at that point, too. And basically, my agent suggested I put it together while we were waiting for somebody to come up with that huge record deal. And he said, just to keep working, why don't you? And it was at the beginning of the whole era of tribute shows, and so my management was also managing the Blushing Brides at the time, and Tony Springer was doing the Fire the Hendrix thing, and so it was like, okay, but for me it was like I couldn't just put the band together and go out like a band, so I did all of this other crazy stuff that everybody was like, what are you doing, and but yeah, in the end I just didn't like the feeling, and I'm later in life now, I've had to really kind of think about whether you just take it on as a role. In the case of my Bowie show, I don't. It's really about me singing David Bowie and what Bowie meant to all of us. I put it that way, as opposed to pretending I'm David Bowie.
That's it.
You saw the show.
Oh, yeah. So. You weren't just trying to be David Bowie. You were presenting David Bowie.
Exactly.
In all its incarnations, yeah. And I tell you, it really went over well. I mean, I was sitting up where I could look down on the audience as well. And I saw them coming in, because I got there early, and I saw them coming in dressed as characters from the 60s and the 70s. And there were some great outfits that, showed up. And you brought some of those people up on stage as well.
Yeah, well, and again, that's the thing, is what I really strive to create is a real happening, like a Bowie happening, as I call it, the Bowie Spectacular. So I want everybody to be involved. Because, in the end, as you said, the Bowie fans, they're the most discerning. So you need to do something respectful.
Yeah.
And they're not interested, I think,
It's not a tribute artist show. It's a show about the Bowie lives or the Bowie lives, whichever way you want to look
Yeah,
at it.
well, it's a show about David Bowie
Yeah.
in that way. Like, here are David Bowie's costumes, and here are David Bowie's songs, and here's little stories and anecdotes.
Yeah.
It's about what Bowie meant to me, or what Bowie meant to the public, or things that he had done.
So many stories. It's so very interesting, to hear people's reflections on their own thoughts of David Bowie.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So,
You just got back from a big a trip to Ireland. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Michael?
It was second time. Took my musical director, Michael Beauclair, who's also the drummer in the show,
Yeah.
and my road manager, Chris Potter, who is also our photo guy, over. And it was my second time
Yeah.
to the Dublin Bowie Fest and the Dublin Bowie Festival. And they were in their 9th year this year, and they had a huge offering. It's great. Like, I discovered it last year. I went to last year's festival, and takes place in Dublin in a couple of different venues, and different bands do different things. Some bands do a whole album, or there's or they're a tribute show,
Yeah.
or they're a single act, or have Jerry Leonard comes across. So they have Bowie alumni come over the years and do Q&As in the afternoon, and then maybe perform later at night. This year they did a offering at a big theater 2 nights, sold them both out with an orchestra and a number of different singers. And
one that caught my notice was the Diamond Dolls drag show.
yeah, for instance,
Yeah.
right? So,
Oh, yeah.
it was in one of the clubs downtown, and they had a drag show, they all inspired by Bowie, so they dressed up as different Bowies, and they played and danced to Bowie tracks. So, again, they're doing the same thing. They're making a big happening now. Their deal is a lot bigger, obviously, because it's a number of bands and a number of venues over a number of days.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of idea that, they're trying to showcase all the different sides and of Bowie's career, and involve a whole bunch of different people to do it.
You got involved in kind of a impromptu karaoke performance. Is that?
I did.
Yeah, how'd that happen?
Did. Well, I was hanging out with the folks who put the show together.
Yeah.
And John said to me, it was the last night. Well, it wasn't the last night. It was the Saturday night. It was the last night we were there, and we were just there for the. They had 2 bands play that night in one of the clubs, and so we got chatting after the show, and after we were congratulating the band and all that. And he said, "Well, we're going upstairs to this other venue in the club to do Bowie karaoke. I expect you're coming." And I didn't realize that it was happening, and I said, "Sure." And he goes, "Consider it your audition." Because of course, one of the things I'm over there doing is I'm trying to get myself on the bill.
Yeah.
Whether I do a solo thing as a singer, or I would love to be able to bring the band across. And we've already talked with the band about perhaps just underwriting a bit of it if they don't have the budget for us all to come over, and we're all pretty excited with the prospect of it. So I got up there and opened the show with Young Americans, and then we had to scoot right out and get back. We flew back. I was chatting them the next day as I was driving back from the airport, and I'd just seen them about 8 hours earlier, and it was just like, hey, thanks for everything, and we had a great time, and I'm back, home right now. I'm just driving home, and so yeah, fantastic. Any Bowie fans are thinking, when could I go see Dublin? There's a reason to do it. They move the date around, but it seems to be always in the winter at some point.
So that was the 9th annual Dublin Bowie Festival. You're going to be back there for number 10, Michael.
I hope to be back for number 10, and I hope to be playing it. As I say, we chatted a little bit about that, and they're really running the show on a shoestring. Like, I think a lot of the artists are just donating time, and that even though it's a big show, but nobody's getting paid, I don't think.
Yeah, but you're having a great time, eh? A great time.
I'm sorry?
You're having a great time.
Everybody's just having a great time, and it's their opportunity to share their love for David Bowie and the music.
Well, let's talk about where you're going to be appearing, because it's coming up pretty soon now. March is just around the next bend in the road, and the 9th of March, you're going to be in Toronto with your show.
Yeah, well, the guys allow me one club date a year. So we did this last year at the Duke, which is an iconic live room, kind of like the Horseshoe Tavern level kind of bar, live venue. Everybody's kind of played it. It's out on Queen East. And we had great fun last year, and so I convinced everybody to let me do it again this year. It's just such a different energy. And then all the rest of the shows are all just back into the theaters, but I just love it. It's a little, 200-seat.
Yeah, it's one of the iconic places in Toronto.
What's that?
It's an iconic venue in Toronto.
It is an iconic venue, and the folks are great. And I think there's only about 10 seats or something left for this show 2 weeks out. So it's going to be packed up, and it's just great. It's great to have fans just a few feet away from you, like sort of in your face. It's a low stage, and they're dancing, and you can jump into the crowd with them.
Oh yeah, well, you were running around in the audience with the crowd as well when I saw you.
Yeah, well, I try to do a little bit of that. Sometimes I have the funniest story is playing the Regent Theater in Oshawa once, and everybody was dancing up the sides of the room. I don't if you know this room. It's got 2 aisles and 3 sets of seats, and then the sides. And everybody was dancing on both the sides. And I ran, and there was no stairs, and we were doing Let's Dance, and I ran and jumped off the stage, not realizing really that it was 4.5 feet, 5 feet high, and I landed it. Thank goodness, because when I look back on it, I thought, man, I could have spilled out and broke an ankle and flew to the first row. Like it was a pretty crazy thing to do for an old man. Yeah. But ran up and danced the storm up with everybody, and then of course I had to run back to get my cue. I didn't have my mic because I'm corded, and I ran back to the stage to hit my cue. Realized there were no stairs again, and did my best in this tight blue suit to get myself, throw my leg up on the stage, landed flat on my back. My road manager, runs out and pulls me up, and then, boom, didn't miss my cue.
No kidding. You hit it.
Didn't miss a line.
Oh, boy. That must have been a wonderful night when you think back on it. What could have happened.
Well, and this is maybe part of my problem with this show is I get so excited and I forget that, that I'm an old guy. Like I think I'm a teenager. When I was a kid, playing in bands, I was the first guy to climb the PA and sing from the top of the PA or swinging from rafters or on somebody's table in a bar or something, so I'm, you
gotta be careful, maybe 2 feet, 4.5 feet down, 5 feet down. That's a long ways to jump.
It was a long way to jump. I'll tell you, I was amazed when I looked back at it at the end of the night. I went, I don't believe that I made that. And everybody was just, my God, man, we were all, thought you were just going to take a header into the front row, right? But, well, luckily, I go to the gym and I keep my yoga handy. So hopefully I'll be able to pull that kind of stunt off for a few more years.
Well, that's it. You keep in shape and you can do this stuff into your 80s, maybe 90s, hopefully.
Well, look at Jagger, right?
You got it, yeah.
Like, there's the inspiration. That guy, I'm sure he's training 2 or 3 hours every day.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it's who's jumping around like that at that age?
Nobody.
Nobody. Exactly.
Oh, boy. Hey, Michael Bell, you've got some other shows that are coming to southwestern Ontario. You got a fall lineup. You don't have all the shows listed yet, but you've got more coming. But October 18th, on a Friday night, you're going to be in Port Dover at the Lighthouse Theater.
Yeah, we're back in the area for sure. That's going to be a really fun show. The Port Colborne show was so much fun. What a great audience there. So we're hoping to see a bunch of familiar faces over in Port Dover. And of course, I may be down in Port Dover in September for the 13th, because that would be probably like my 8th time motorcycling my way to Port Dover.
Is that going to be Friday the 13th?
Friday the 13th this year is in September. So weather permitting, I'll be down, parking my bike and pretending I'm a biker.
We'll have to get a phone call on the 13th from you while you're in Port Dover and just talk about what's going on down there.
Oh, I'd love to report from there. Yeah,
for sure.
It's a great show. I mean, lots of fun. I go down with a couple of riding buddies, and I've been riding for years and years, and there aren't too many places you can just go and gather like that, and listen to some bands.
I was at my old radio station, my classic rock station that I spent 11 years with, and it was on the way to Port Dover. It was in the Welland, Port Colborne area. And every Friday the 13th, they would have a big picnic, which was actually a breakfast. And all the bikers were invited to stop by on their way to Port Dover and get fed and coffee and everything else, And this thing went on for the whole day. And then they'd ride on to Port Dover, 100,000 people down there, 100,000 bikers and their friends.
It's incredible. And it's, for folks who haven't gone to it, or don't be scared off by the notion of bikers. Bikers are a very different breed these days.
Yeah.
Like they're not crazy young kids.
No.
It's an expensive sport.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
It's a lot of doctors and lawyers and professionals and musicians and and bikies, of course.
You gotta spend a few bucks to get those Harleys on the road.
You do. Like it's not like the old days, I don't think,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't bike when I was a young guy. I took it up later in life, but so it's a well-behaved, nice campground. It's not the biker thing is we call them bikies now instead of bikers.
Yeah, they don't want to be called bikers anymore. They're bikies, yeah.
Yeah, bikies is an Australian thing. When I spent time in Australia for a few years, and that's what they call them there, bikies.
Bikies, wow. Okay, then you got London coming up. Now that's going to be in November at the Wolf Performance Hall in London.
That'll be our first time in London. Haven't played that room, but it looks amazing.
Oh, London has a great crowd. There's a great musical establishment in London, so you're going to have a full house, and tickets are going to be sold out fast on that one too.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah.
And then you have a convention, Bowie in France, coming up. That's going to be in Paris, France, in April 28th, right?
In April, on the 28th. I haven't been to that one yet. I've been to Paris a number of times, but for other reasons. I just discovered it this year as a destination for that. Looks like it's going to be like a shorter. It's like a 10 o'clock, or maybe that's not right, 2 o'clock in the afternoon to like 8 o'clock at night or something like that on a Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not sure what the offering will be, but I'm going to go.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
And go to David Bowie Street too, Rue David Bowie, which they just this year put the plaque up, and they've named a street in Paris after him. And I was there a couple of years ago. Funny story. A buddy of mine who says, "Oh, there's a David Bowie Street, Rue David Bowie in Paris," and I was hanging out in the Latin Quarter downtown, and it was my last night there, and I went, "Oh, I wish you had told me earlier." And I thought, "Okay, I'm going." So I just started walking hard, and with Google Maps, and I get there, and all I want to do is get a photo. It's like Rue David Bowie and me in my shirt. You know? And I get there, and my God, it was like a 45-minute full tilt walk, and it's just a pile of construction materials, and I walk, I can't see a sign anywhere, and I walk into a wine store that's kind of like on the corner, and they say, "I bet you're here for Rue David Bowie." I said, "Where is it?" He goes, "It's right there. They just haven't finished it. They haven't done anything with it, and it's designated, but no sign yet." And oh my goodness. So anyways, they finally got the sign up this year and cleaned up the street, and it's operational as a real road. So I'll go down and get a picture in front of it as well. And I love Paris. That's a fantastic.
You got to send me that picture of you pointing at the sign or standing right under it, and I'll post it everywhere. People got to see
exactly,
that.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah. Well, it's
Wow.
like going to Berlin and hanging out, and I've got some good pictures of standing in front of the Hansa studio and in front of his old apartment where he used to live with Iggy. There's a bit of a shrine there as well, and yeah,
it's an exciting time being David Bowie, isn't it?
It's what?
It's an exciting lifestyle being David Bowie.
Well, it is. You put a whole bunch of Bowie Lives buttons in your pocket, and you give them out everywhere you go. I leave them as tips everywhere I go.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And you spread the Bowie and try to retrace some steps and listen to stories from folks who have traveled with him. And again, in Dublin, I had a great opportunity to meet Dennis O'Regan, who's traveled with Bowie for a number of years and a number of world tours, and he's produced a number of books. I have one right in front of me called The Serious Moonlight World Tour. It's a big picture book, and he's got he's a number of pictures and books, stuff that you would go, oh, is that his photo? It's kind of like John here. Suddenly I can't think of John's last name.
That's
Roland.
okay, yeah.
And who is
John Rowlands, the photographer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Dennis was the same kind of guy, but out of the UK, and traveled with Bowie for a number of tours, and getting a chance to meet him twice when I was over there. Once during the night while we were watching bands, and then the next day we went up to a gallery that was showing his work, and he was there, happened to be there, and he gave me a private tour of the photos and told the little stories behind each one of them and how he got the shot and what David was up to. And those are great insights where you hear, people just talking about him because he's just a guy, in the end. It's not, oh, he's a prima donna or anything. It's like, no, and we had breakfast. He used to like, this, and have some toast, and just, oh yeah, real guy, normal guy.
Oh, that's funny. Michael Bell, I'm going to let you get going here because I'm taking up all your time here on the weekend, but I really want to thank you for talking to me today. And we're going to get some more information on the air when you get down to Port Dover, and you're down there with the bikers on September 13th as well, and playing the Lighthouse Theater in Port Dover October 18th. But your next big venue, it kind of seems like you're all set to go, is March 9th at the Duke of York Pub in Toronto on Queen Street East. All set for that?
We are.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm definitely ready.
You're pumped. I can hear it in your voice, Michael.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about the show. I'm excited about, being able to do it at this point in my life, and that it feels like a bit of a mission to help him, help Bowie, his music and his art and everything he stood for, to keep it front and center in people's minds. Maybe I'll be part of the Bowie Renaissance that I think is just around the corner.
I think so. The Bowie Lives, Canada's most spectacular tribute to David Bowie, with Michael Bell. Michael, thanks again. I'm going to get some more David Bowie music on the air here, and we're going to let you go, and look for you on the 9th of March at the Duke of York Pub in Toronto, and then everything kicks off, and you're going to be busy until fall after that.
Thanks again, Pat. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man.
Oh, it is. Some great stories. You made me laugh here a number of times here, Michael Bell, so I love it. It's going to be a podcast, and I'll make sure you get this podcast in a couple of days or so, and we'll share that all around as well.
Fantastic.
All right. Hey, thanks, Michael Bell, for talking to me today. We'll talk to you again real soon. Don't be a stranger, eh?
Well, hope to see you at the Port Dover show.
Well, I'll be down there for the Port Dover show for sure. I don't know if I'll be on my bike because I've only got a Schwinn. But we'll try and get down there. Hey, Michael Bell, thanks for taking the time again today to talk to me.
Thanks again, Pat.
Okay, you take care.
Cheers.
All right. Cheers to you.
They pulled in just behind the bridge. He lays her down. He frowns. Gee, my life's a funny thing. Am I still too young? He kissed her then and there. She took his ring, took his babies. It took him minutes, took her nowhere. Heaven knows he'd have taken anything. All night. She wants a young American. Young American, young American. She wants the young American. All night. But she wants the young American. Standing right through the picture window, she finds a slinky vagabond. Because as he passes, avoiding my sting. Heaven forbid she take anything but the freak and his title for nothing. This is a step and cuts his hand, showing nothing. It swims like a song, she cries. Where have all Papa's heroes gone? All night. She wants a young American. Young American, young American. She wants the young American. All night. Well, she wants the young American. All the way from Washington. Her breadwinner begs off the bathroom floor. We live for just these 20 years. Do we have to die for the 50 more? And all night. He wants the young American. Young American, so young American. He wants the young American. All right, but he wants the young American. Do you remember your President Nixon? Do you remember the bills you have to pay, or even yesterday? Have you been on American? Just you and your idle simple sets about leather everywhere, and not a miss left from the ghetto. Well, would you carry a visa just in case of depression? Sit on your hands on the bus of survivors, blushing at all the Afro-Sheeners. Ain't that close to love? Well, ain't that close to love? Well, it ain't that Barbie doll. Her heart's been broken just like you and all night. What the young American? Young American, young American. You want the young American? All right. You want the young American? You ain't a purple, you ain't a horse. A bird's got a canyon, a lady got a geyser. Black's got the stacker, white's got a soul train. Mama's got cramps and look at your hands shake.
I heard the news today, oh boy.
Honey, sweet Annie, you got the feel. You're the man who can say no more. And the woman I can suck on the jaw. And the retired I can help with that judging. And the band that will right before they die. Ain't you proud that you struck our faces? Ain't there one dance song that can make me break down and cry? I want the young American.
Young American,
The young American.
I want the young American.
I want the young American. Young American.
Young American,
I want what you want.
I want the young
I want what you want. You want what I want. You want I want you want. I want you.
There you go, David Bowie, Young Americans. It sure was great talking to my friend Michael Bell, who does the Bowie Lives, or the Bowie Lives. Any way you want to put it, either way, it's great. And he's going to be on tour at the Duke of York pub in Toronto on the 9th of March. And then some other venues as well. He's going to be in Bancroft and Barrie and Coburg, and then Port Dover on Friday, October 18th at the Lighthouse Theater, and he promises to get down for the Biker Day on September 13th, Friday the 13th in Port Dover. I might get down there and hang out with him, and we'll have a little fun down there. I got a caller on the line wants to talk about David Bowie. Who's this?
It is the infamous Jay Moore. Pat Porter, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, infamous Jay Moore?
I'm upset. Is there any time left in the program, or are you just going to talk to this David Bowie wannabe all night, or just keep on going and leave nothing for me?
I got some time for you. I left
Pat Porter,
plenty of...
I got news for you. David Bowie neither lives or is going to be live. David Bowie is very much dead. I don't know if you know that, and I don't know why you're talking to just some guy that thinks that he is David Bowie, for one thing.
Well, he doesn't think he is David Bowie. He channels David Bowie.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, what do you do?
Porter, I got some news for you. I got some news for you.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be proud of me for once.
Oh, okay.
For once.
Oh, good.
I had the opportunity to have breakfast this morning with a great comedian, Mr. Eugene Levy, who I'm sure that you know. And, he knows you, and he says that he's done interviews with you many, many times in the past. And he is in town this tonight and tomorrow for the Canadian Comedy Awards. Some of the Canadians getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And what the actual joke is about it, it's ironic that they call it comedy, because the joke is that they couldn't sell any tickets to this thing, and they wanted you and I to go host and induct some of the comedians. And I think you're going to be very proud of me, Pat Porter, because I did what I know that you would have done. I told Eugene that you have no time for Hamilton, and the best thing is going to Hamilton is leaving Hamilton, and you think that Hamilton is a stinkhole. You'll never go there. You'll never perform there. The only time you ever go there is for hosting at the Leander Boat Club. That's all it says to him. So that's it.
You know, my good buddy, Eugene Levy, we go back a ways, and
yes.
I'm doing some work with Dan Aykroyd lately. So
yes.
he I guess they remember each other and know each other because they were both involved in Saturday Night Live.
Yes. Eugene Levy said that he used to talk to you way back in the day when he was doing SCTV, and I was like, wow, my God, that is 110 years ago.
Well, hey, there's something to be said for being around a long time, infamous Jay Moore.
Yes, that's it. So I hope you're proud of me because I kept you out of Hamilton, Pat Porter, and I gave you the opportunity to plug the Leander Boat Club coming up in May. But
May 24th.
It sounds like you're not even going to do that.
No,
either,
you and I are going to be there. May 24th,
yes.
We're going to be there. It's going to be the King Biscuit Boy show. The tribute to King Biscuit Boy, who was a great Hamilton blues man, played a mean harmonica, and we're going to be there with some great blues bands. I can't tell you all the lineup yet, but it's coming together, and I'll let you get on stage first and introduce everybody. How's that?
Well, that's great, and what's special about it is it's a very rare appearance for us to be in Hamilton, so come out to that King Biscuit Boy, and you can forget about Eugene Levy and all these comedians that are having trouble selling tickets. They're trying to beg the people to come to this, but nobody wants to go to Hamilton, Pat Porter. You know what's interesting else, Pat Porter?
What else?
As I always plug my wrestling shows, I take the opportunity to give free plugs on your show for April 13th, Go Neo Pro. But tomorrow, very, very special on the 4680Q, on the infamous Jay Moore Show with Pat Porter, the son of 80s wrestling legend, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, who started at WrestleMania, Survivor Series, all the big main events with Hulk Hogan been all over. Travis Orndorff is going to be on the phone with us, and we're going to talk old stories about Paul Orndorff and what he was like as a father and what it was like growing up when Paul Orndorff was very, very huge in pop culture back in the 80s, fighting Mr. T and whatnot.
Well, it sounds like a great show. I can't wait for that. If you behave yourself tomorrow, we'll get together and we'll have a good show.
And what's great about it, Pat, is it's his actual son. It's not somebody trying to be Paul Orndorff, like somebody trying to be David Bowie.
Come on.
Come on.
I thought maybe you're going to slow down and take it easy and then talk like a normal person for a little while.
All right. Well, I got nothing left. I can tell the show's ending, and you give 55 minutes to this guy and 4 minutes to me and one song. Great show.
You got the whole hour tomorrow. The infamous Jay Moore Show tomorrow, 3 o'clock on 4680q.ca. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to be in the studio together and see who kills each other first.
Yeah, it's going to be a brawl to settle it all tomorrow at 3 p.m. and the bell's ringing at 3 sharp. So be there, tune in, 4680q.ca, because this could be the last Infamous Jay Moore show, because one of us isn't going to make it out of the studio alive. Much like David Bowie, one of us is going to be dead.
I'll take bets it's going to be you that's not going to be with us anymore.
Yes. Apologies to Michael Bell, but hey, sometimes that's the way it goes when you're Infamous Jay Moore.
Infamous. Thank you. Okay, we're fading out, Jay. Bye. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, Pat.
Okay, there he goes. He's gone. The Infamous Jay Moore back tomorrow. Here's David Bowie to wrap up the show here today. Hashtag Pat Porter Show. 4680q.ca.
Put on your red shoes and dance the blues to the song they're playing on the radio. While color lights up your